The deadliest female sniper returns from the shadows. The rain hammered against the bulletproof windows of the Mercedes S-Class as it wound through the narrow mountain roads outside Zurich. In the passenger seat, Major Claudia Portman, former Delta Force sniper, current head of executive protection for Meridian Defense Corporation, scanned the tree line with eyes that had once been considered the most dangerous in the U.S. military. At 32, she possessed the kind of lethal precision that had made her legendary among special operations communities worldwide, earning her the call sign Ghost for her ability to eliminate targets from impossible distances without ever being detected. Temperature dropping to 38 degrees, humidity at 72%, wind gusting to 15 miles per hour from the northwest. She murmured into her throat microphone, automatically calculating environmental factors that could affect long-range shooting scenarios. Old habits died hard even 5 years after she had sworn never to hold a sniper rifle again. Behind her sat Jonathan Reeves, the 60-year-old CEO of Meridian Defense, one of the largest private military contractors in the world. Reeves was returning from a classified meeting with Swiss banking officials regarding a $2 billion arms contract with several African nations, the kind of deal that attracted attention from governments, terrorist organizations, and corporate competitors alike. "How much further to the airfield?" Reeves asked, checking his Rolex Submariner for the third time in 10 minutes. 12 minutes at current speed, replied Marcus Chen, Claudia's driver and former Army Ranger. All checkpoints report clear, no suspicious activity observed. Claudia frowned at something she couldn't quite identify in the landscape ahead. After 15 years in special operations, she had developed an instinct for danger that operated below conscious thought. Something about the approaching curve felt wrong, the way shadows fell across the road, the absence of civilian traffic on a route that should have been busy, the positioning of a seemingly abandoned construction site that provided perfect overwatch of their route. "Chen, stop the vehicle," she ordered. "Ma'am." "Full stop, right here." The Mercedes halted in the middle of the mountain road, its armored bulk weighing nearly 8,000 pounds due to ballistic protection rated to withstand small arms fire and explosive devices. Claudia activated her tactical radio and contacted the advanced security team that was supposed to be clearing their route. "Advanced team, this is Ghost. Report your current position." Static. No response. Claudia felt the familiar coldness of combat alertness flooding her system. The advanced team consisted of 4 former special operations personnel with combined experience totaling over 60 years. They did not simply disappear without explanation. "Backup frequency," she instructed Chen, who immediately switched their communication system to an encrypted channel that only Meridian's security personnel were authorized to use. "Advanced team, this is Ghost on backup frequency. Immediate response required." More static, but this time Claudia detected something that made her blood run cold. In the background of the radio transmission, barely audible, was the distinctive sound of suppressed gunfire. The advanced team was not simply out of communication, they were under attack. Chen reversed course immediately. "We're going back to Bao." The first bullet struck the driver's side window exactly where Chen's head would have been if the vehicle had not been equipped with ballistic glass rated to stop armor-piercing ammunition. The impact created a spiderweb pattern across the reinforced window but did not penetrate the passenger compartment. "Contact front," Claudia shouted, immediately assessing the tactical situation through her passenger window. Single shooter, approximately 800 meters elevated position in the construction area. She could see the muzzle flash from the sniper's position, a brief flicker of light that revealed his location on a steel beam framework that provided excellent fields of fire over the entire roadway. The shooter was using a high-powered rifle, probably .338 Lapua Magnum or similar, capable of penetrating most vehicle armor with the right ammunition. Chen gunned the Mercedes in reverse, its reinforced tires screaming against asphalt as he attempted to reach cover behind the curve they had just navigated. But as the vehicle accelerated backward, Claudia spotted movement in her peripheral vision that confirmed her worst fears about their situation. "Multiple contacts," she reported. "We've got shooters in overwatch positions covering our retreat route. This is a coordinated ambush." Reeves had gone pale in the backseat, clearly understanding that his billion-dollar arms deals had finally attracted the kind of attention that resulted in assassination attempts. "How many are we facing?" Claudia counted muzzle flashes from different positions as additional bullets struck their vehicle. Minimum 4 shooters, probably more. Professional positioning, coordinated fire control. These aren't random terrorists or corporate competitors. Then who are they? Before Claudia could respond, their vehicle's rear window exploded inward, sending armored glass fragments throughout the passenger compartment. The shooter, who had achieved penetration, was firing from an elevated position behind them, using ammunition specifically designed to defeat vehicular armor. Armor-piercing rounds, Claudia announced. Chen, we need to get off this road immediately or we're all dead. Chen spotted a narrow access road that led into the forest and jerked the steering wheel hard left, sending the Mercedes crashing through a wooden barrier and onto a dirt track that was barely wide enough for their armored vehicle. Behind them, Claudia could hear the sounds of pursuit, multiple vehicles moving at high speed, probably lighter and more maneuverable than their heavy Mercedes. "Ghost, this is Meridian Base," crackled through their radio. It was Sarah Mitchell, the operations coordinator at their Swiss facility. "We're receiving reports of armed contact at your location. What's your status?" "Base, we are under attack by unknown forces using military-grade weapons and tactics. Advanced team is presumed compromised. Request immediate air support and ground reinforcement." "Copy, Ghost. Swiss authorities have been notified, but response time to your location is estimated at 25 minutes minimum." 25 minutes. Claudia calculated their ammunition supply, the pursuing vehicle's likely capabilities, and the terrain features that might provide defensive positions. The mathematics were not encouraging. Their Mercedes carried enough fuel for perhaps 40 minutes of high-speed driving, they had limited ammunition, and they were being pursued by an unknown number of attackers with superior mobility. "Chen, how's our fuel situation? 3/4 tank, but we're burning it fast with this heavy acceleration." Claudia studied the terrain through her windows, looking for tactical options that might give them an advantage over their pursuers. The forest road they were following led generally downhill toward a valley that contained a small Swiss village. If they could reach civilian areas, their attackers might be reluctant to continue the engagement due to potential collateral damage and law enforcement response. But as Chen navigated a sharp curve, Claudia spotted something that changed her assessment of their situation entirely. Parked across the road ahead was a black SUV with 2 men in tactical gear holding automatic weapons. The ambush had been planned to drive them exactly where they were going, into a carefully prepared kill zone. "Roadblock ahead," she announced. "Chen, can you ram through?" "Negative, they're positioned on a narrow section with steep drops on both sides. If we leave the road, we're going over a cliff." Claudia looked behind them and saw dust clouds indicating their pursuers were closing the distance rapidly. They were trapped between the roadblock ahead and the chase vehicles behind, with nowhere to maneuver and no friendly forces within effective range. For the first time in 5 years, Claudia Portman found herself in a combat situation that required the skills she had spent so long trying to forget. "Reeves," she said quietly, "do you have any idea who might want you dead badly enough to organize a military-style assassination operation?" "Claudia, I deal with arms sales to governments and military organizations worldwide. The list of people who might want me eliminated is extensive. Anyone specific who would have access to professional operators and classified intelligence about our security procedures." Reeves considered the question while bullets continued to strike their vehicles sporadically. "There's been some tension lately with former business partners. Meridian recently terminated contracts with several private military companies due to ethical concerns about their operations in Africa." Claudia felt something click into place in her mind. What kind of ethical concerns? Reports of civilian casualties, weapons trafficking to unauthorized recipients, collaboration with war criminals. Standard corporate responsibility issues that became liabilities when they hit international media. "Reeves, who specifically did you cut ties with?" "Several companies, but the largest was Blackwater International. Their CEO, Marcus Webb, was particularly unhappy about the contract termination." Claudia felt her chest tighten. Marcus Webb was a name she knew from her operational days in Delta Force. He was a former Navy SEAL who had transitioned into private military contracting and had built a reputation for accepting contracts that legitimate companies avoided. If Webb was behind this attack, they were facing experienced military operators with extensive resources and no regard for collateral damage. "Chen, we need to abandon the vehicle," she decided. "Staying mobile is no longer an option. Ma'am, we're in the middle of hostile territory with no support and limited ammunition." "Copy that, but this vehicle is about to become a metal coffin if we stay in it much longer. Claudia opened her equipment case and removed a compact sniper rifle that she had carried for 5 years without ever intending to use again. The Accuracy International AX308 was a precision instrument designed for targets up to 1,200 meters lightweight, enough for mobile operations, but accurate enough for surgical eliminations. Holding it again felt like putting on an old uniform that still fit perfectly. Reeves, you stay with Chen and maintain radio contact with base. I'm going to neutralize the roadblock and create an escape route. Claudia, you haven't been in active operations for 5 years. Are you certain? Mr. Reeves, I was eliminating targets at extreme range when most of these contractors were still in high school. Trust me to do my job. Claudia exited the vehicle and immediately moved into the forest using terrain features to mask her approach toward the roadblock position. The two operators she had observed were positioned to cover the road itself, but they had not established adequate security for threats approaching from the flanks. It was a tactical mistake that would cost them their lives. Moving through the forest, Claudia felt her operational instincts returning with startling clarity. Every shadow, every sound, every movement in her peripheral vision carried tactical significance. She was no longer a corporate security consultant. She was Ghost, the Delta Force sniper, who had been credited with over 70 confirmed kills during classified operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. She established a shooting position approximately 400 meters from the roadblock using a fallen tree as both cover and a stable firing platform. Through her rifle scope, she could see both operators, clearly former military personnel, based on their equipment and positioning, probably special operations veterans with combat experience. Under normal circumstances, Claudia would have attempted to find a non-lethal solution to the tactical problem. But the sounds of approaching vehicles indicated that their pursuers were closing rapidly, and any delay would result in her team being caught in crossfire between multiple enemy positions. She acquired her first target, a man in his 30s holding an M4 carbine and wearing body armor that would not stop her rifle's ammunition. Range to target 437 meters, wind speed 12 miles per hour from the west, temperature 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Atmospheric pressure standard for this altitude. Claudia controlled her breathing and found the natural respiratory pause that every precision shooter used. The trigger broke cleanly and she tracked the bullet's impact through her scope. The first operator dropped immediately, struck center mass with a shot that was both instantly lethal and tactically decisive. The second operator reacted professionally, immediately moving to cover while scanning for the source of incoming fire. But Claudia had already adjusted her position and acquired a new target picture. Her second shot eliminated the remaining threat, clearing the roadblock and opening their escape route. Chen roadblock neutralized. Move the vehicle forward and be prepared for immediate exfiltration. But as the Mercedes approached her position, Claudia's radio crackled with a transmission that made her blood run cold. Ghost, this is someone who's been waiting 5 years to have this conversation with you. The voice was familiar, carrying the distinctive accent of someone who had grown up in the American South but had spent years overseas. Claudia recognized it immediately, and the recognition brought back memories she had spent 5 years trying to suppress. Identify yourself, she transmitted. This is Captain Ryan Matthews, formerly of the 75th Ranger Regiment. You probably remember me as the sniper you trained in advanced marksmanship before your departure from military service. Claudia felt something cold settle in her stomach. Ryan Matthews had been one of her most promising students during her time as a sniper instructor at Fort Benning. He was exceptionally skilled, highly motivated, and completely devoted to the precision shooting techniques she had taught him. Matthews, what do you want? I want you to understand that everything happening today is a direct result of what you did 5 years ago in Syria. You abandoned your responsibilities, abandoned your students, and abandoned the principles you claim to believe in. Now it's time for you to pay the price. Claudia climbed into the Mercedes as Chen accelerated away from the roadblock, but her mind was racing through implications of Matthews' involvement. If he was working with Marcus Webb's organization, then this attack was not simply about Reeves's business dealings. It was personal revenge directed specifically at her. Matthews, whatever grievances you have with me, they have nothing to do with Reeves or my current job. This is between you and me. Actually, Ghost, it has everything to do with your current job. You see, Meridian Defense has been funding operations that resulted in the deaths of several of my teammates. Mr. Reeves's ethical concerns led to the cancellation of contracts that left my people without support in hostile territory. Claudia began to understand the scope of what they were facing. This was not a simple assassination attempt or corporate rivalry. Matthews and Webb had orchestrated a complex revenge operation that combined personal vendetta with business interests, using Claudia's protective responsibilities as a way to draw her into a trap. What happened in Syria was not abandonment, Matthews. It was recognition that I had lost the ability to make tactical decisions that didn't get good people killed. That's where you're wrong, Ghost. What happened in Syria was the moment you proved that even the legendary Ghost could fail when the pressure was real. And I've spent 5 years planning to put you in the same situation again, except this time there won't be any convenient resignation to save you from the consequences. The Mercedes continued down the mountain road while Claudia processed the tactical implications of Matthew's revelation. He knew her operational history, her psychological vulnerabilities, and her current security protocols. Worse, he had clearly planned this operation to exploit specific weaknesses in her decision-making process. Change of destination. We're not going to the airfield. Where are we going? Somewhere Matthews won't expect. Somewhere I can control the tactical environment instead of reacting to his choices. Claudia directed Chen to a small industrial area on the outskirts of the valley, a complex of abandoned factories that would provide cover concealment in multiple firing positions for a defensive engagement. If Matthews wanted to settle their 5-year-old grievance, she would give him the opportunity on terms that favored her experience rather than his preparation. But as they approached the industrial complex, Claudia's radio received another transmission that changed everything. Ghost, this is Major Sarah Collins, Delta Force Operational Command. We've been monitoring communications related to your situation, and we need to talk immediately. Sarah Collins, Claudia's former commanding officer and the woman who had investigated the incident in Syria that ended her military career. If Delta Force was monitoring this situation, it meant that Matthew's operation had attracted attention from the highest levels of the special operations community. Collins, I'm kind of busy at the moment. Ghost, listen to me very carefully. Ryan Matthews is not just seeking personal revenge. He's working with foreign intelligence services to eliminate key personnel in the American defense industry. You're not just protecting a client, you're preventing an act of international terrorism. Claudia felt the tactical situation shifting around her in real time. What had begun as a simple executive protection mission had evolved into corporate assassination, then personal revenge, and now international espionage. But one element remained constant. She was the primary target, and everything else was secondary to Matthews's desire to prove that the legendary Ghost could be defeated. Collins, what do you need from me? I need you to do what you do best, Ghost. I need you to eliminate a threat that conventional forces cannot reach in time to prevent significant casualties. For the first time in 5 years, Claudia Portman felt like she was exactly where she belonged, not hiding behind corporate security procedures or administrative responsibilities, but facing down a deadly threat that required the specific skills she had spent her entire adult life perfecting. Copy that, Major. Ghost is back in business. The abandoned factory complex sprawled across 15 acres of Swiss countryside, its empty warehouses and rusted machinery providing perfect terrain for the kind of close-quarters combat that would determine whether Claudia Portman survived the next 2 hours. As Chen maneuvered the Mercedes between rows of industrial buildings, Claudia studied the tactical environment with eyes that had not seen active combat in 5 years, but still recognized opportunity when it presented itself. Reeves, you're going to wait in the vehicle with Chen while I clear this area and establish contact with our opposition, she announced, checking her equipment one final time. Do not exit the vehicle under any circumstances unless I give you direct authorization. Claudia, there has to be another option. We could call Swiss authorities, request military support, negotiate. Mr. Reeves Ryan Matthews has been planning this operation for 5 years. He's not interested in negotiation, and he's not going to be deterred by local law enforcement. The only way to resolve this situation is to confront him directly. Claudia exited the Mercedes and immediately moved into the industrial complex, using her knowledge of tactical movement to approach Matthews's likely position while minimizing her exposure to enemy observation. The factory buildings provided excellent cover, but they also created dozens of potential ambush sites where a skilled marksman could establish concealment. Her radio crackled with Matthew's voice as she moved deeper into the complex. Ghost, I have to admit, I'm impressed. 5 years of corporate security work, and you still remember how to think like a soldier. Matthews, let's skip the psychological warfare and get to the point. What do you want from me? I want you to experience the same sense of helplessness that I felt when you abandoned your responsibilities in Syria. I want you to make tactical decisions under pressure and watch them result in the deaths of people you're supposed to protect. Claudia paused behind a concrete support column, analyzing Matthew's words for intelligence about his operational plan. His reference to protecting people suggested that he intended to threaten Reeves and Chen, using them as psychological leverage to force her into making tactical mistakes. Matthew's Syria was 5 years ago. Whatever happened there, it's not worth destroying your military career and risking civilian lives. Syria was the defining moment of my military career, Ghost. That's where I learned that even the most legendary soldiers can fail when the stakes are real. And that's where I decided to prove that failure is a choice, not an inevitable outcome. Claudia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Swiss mountain air. Matthews was referencing specific details about the incident in Syria that had ended her military career, but he was interpreting those events through a lens of personal betrayal rather than tactical reality. Whatever had happened in his mind during the intervening 5 years had transformed legitimate professional disagreement into obsessive vendetta. She continued moving through the factory complex while maintaining radio contact with Chen and monitoring for signs of Matthew's position. But as she approached the central building, her tactical instincts detected something that changed her assessment of the immediate threat: movement. Multiple contacts positioned in Overwatch locations that covered all approaches to the main warehouse. Matthews was not operating alone. He had brought a full tactical team to this engagement. Chen, we've got multiple hostiles in the complex. Maintain your position and be prepared for immediate exfiltration if I give the order. Copy, Ghost. Should I contact Meridian Base for additional support? Claudia considered the question while counting muzzle flashes from various positions around the warehouse. Negative. Response time would be too long, and additional personnel would just provide Matthews with more targets. She established a concealed position behind an abandoned forklift and used her rifle scope to conduct detailed surveillance of the enemy positions. What she observed confirmed her worst fears about the tactical situation. Matthews had positioned at least 6 operators in coordinated Overwatch sites, each with clear fields of fire covering different approaches to the central warehouse. But more concerning was the quality of equipment and positioning she observed through her scope. These were not amateur contractors or foreign intelligence operatives. These were experienced military personnel using professional tactics and state-of-the-art weapons. Matthews had somehow assembled a team of former special operations soldiers for this revenge operation. Her radio received another transmission, this time from a voice she didn't recognize. Ghost, this is Marcus Webb, CEO of Blackwater International. I believe you've been having a conversation with one of my employees. Webb's involvement confirmed what Claudia had suspected about the scope of this operation. Meridian Defense's contract cancellation had provided Webb with both motive and resources for a complex revenge operation that combined business interests with Matthews' personal vendetta. Webb, this is a civilian area with innocent people nearby. Whatever grievances you have with Meridian can be resolved through corporate channels. I'm afraid it's too late for corporate solutions, Ghost. You see, when Meridian terminated our contracts, they left several of my teams exposed in hostile territory without support or extraction resources. Good soldiers died because of your employer's ethical concerns. Now we're going to demonstrate what real ethics look like. Claudia began to understand the psychological framework that Webb and Matthews were using to justify their actions. They had convinced themselves that corporate contract disputes were equivalent to battlefield betrayal and that assassination was an appropriate response to business disagreements. Webb soldiers die in combat. That's not the fault of corporate executives or contract administrators. It's the reality of military operations in hostile environments. That's where you're wrong, Ghost. Soldiers die in combat when they're properly supported by competent leadership. But soldiers die unnecessarily when they're abandoned by people who make promises they don't intend to keep. Webb's words carried the bitter tone of someone who had lost people under circumstances he considered preventable. Claudia recognized the psychology because she had experienced similar feelings after Syria. The difference was that Webb had chosen to seek revenge instead of accepting responsibility. But as she continued monitoring enemy positions through her scope, Claudia noticed something that provided tactical opportunity. Matthews's team had positioned themselves to cover approaches to the warehouse, but they had not established adequate security for flanking maneuvers. If she could reach an elevated position in one of the adjacent buildings, she could engage them from an unexpected angle. Matthews, she transmitted, "I'm going to make you an offer. You and I settle this personally without involving your team or my clients. One-on-one engagement, winner takes all." That's an interesting proposition, Ghost. But I've spent 5 years preparing for this moment. I'm not going to waste it on a simple duel. Then what do you want, Matthews? I want you to attempt a rescue operation that's designed to fail. I want you to make tactical decisions under pressure and watch them result in casualties, just like Syria. Claudia felt something cold settle in her stomach. Matthews had structured this entire operation to recreate the psychological conditions that had driven her from military service 5 years earlier. He wanted to prove that her failure in Syria was not an isolated incident, but a fundamental weakness that would manifest whenever she faced real pressure. But understanding Matthews's psychological objective also revealed his tactical weakness. He was so focused on proving his point about her past failure that he had created predictable patterns in his current operation. If she could use his obsession against him, she might be able to turn the tactical situation to her advantage. Webb, she transmitted, "I'm going to guess that your operation has a timeline. Local law enforcement response, Swiss military intervention, international diplomatic pressure. You can't maintain this engagement indefinitely without attracting attention that threatens your long-term business interests." You're correct, Ghost. We have approximately 90 minutes before external factors force us to conclude this operation. 90 minutes. Claudia calculated ammunition, supplies, movement, and options, and the environmental factors that would affect long-range shooting accuracy as the sun moved across the sky. The mathematics were challenging, but not impossible. Then let's not waste time with extended conversation. Matthews, you want to recreate Syria. Let's recreate Syria, but this time I'm not going to make the same mistakes. Claudia began moving toward the elevated position she had identified using industrial machinery and building features to mask her approach from enemy observation. But as she moved, her radio crackled with a transmission that made her blood run cold. "Ghost, this is Sergeant Lisa Park, U.S. Navy SEALs. I'm calling from Somalia, where my team is currently under attack by a sniper we cannot locate or engage. We need immediate tactical consultation from someone with advanced counter-sniper experience." Somalia, Navy SEALs under attack by a sniper. Claudia felt the tactical situation fragmenting into multiple simultaneous threats that required her immediate attention. But she was pinned down in Switzerland facing her own life-or-death engagement with Matthews and his team. "Park, I'm currently engaged in active combat operations. Can you contact Fort Bragg for sniper support?" Negative, Ghost. Fort Bragg recommended you specifically. They said you're the only instructor with the experience to guide us through this type of engagement. Claudia realized that her past was converging with her present in ways that threatened to overwhelm her decision-making capacity. The same skills that Matthews wanted to prove inadequate were being requested by soldiers in mortal danger halfway around the world. "Park, give me your tactical situation in 30 seconds or less." 6-person SEAL team conducting reconnaissance in Mogadishu. We're trapped in a compound by a sniper who's already killed 2 of our people and wounded 1. The shooter is using tactics that suggest advanced training, possibly former military. Advanced training, former military. Claudia felt pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to fit together in ways that suggested Matthew's operation was connected to international networks rather than simple personal revenge. "Park, can you describe the sniper's tactics in detail?" Precision shots at extreme range, psychological warfare techniques coordinated with ground assault elements. "Ghost, this shooter is operating exactly like the instructional scenarios you developed at Fort Benning." Claudia felt the world tilt around her. The sniper attacking Park's team was using techniques she had developed during her time as an instructor. Either someone had stolen her classified training materials, or one of her former students was operating in Somalia. Matthews, she transmitted, how many of my former students are working for Webb's organization? All the good ones, Ghost. You see, when you abandoned your responsibilities, we had to find alternative instruction elsewhere. Webb's organization has been very accommodating in providing advanced training opportunities for ambitious soldiers. Claudia understood now that she was facing not just Matthews's personal vendetta, but a systematic recruitment operation that had turned her former students into private military contractors who was operating without government oversight or accountability. The sniper in Somalia was probably someone she had trained using her techniques against American military personnel. The ultimate betrayal of everything she had tried to accomplish as an instructor. Park, she transmitted, I'm going to talk you through a counter-sniper operation while simultaneously engaging hostile forces at my location. You'll need to follow my instructions exactly and trust that I know what I'm talking about. Ghost, that sounds like an impossible task even for someone with your reputation. Claudia looked at her tactical environment, calculating the complexity of coordinating two simultaneous combat operations while facing personal threats in both locations. It was the kind of challenge that had driven her from military service 5 years earlier. But it was also exactly the kind of impossible situation that separated good soldiers from legends. Park, I didn't earn my reputation by accepting easy assignments. Stand by for tactical guidance. Claudia Portman was about to discover whether 5 years of doubt in civilian life had destroyed her ability to make life or death decisions under ultimate pressure. And this time failure would mean the deaths of Navy SEALs in Somalia, as well as her own clients in Switzerland. The next 90 minutes would determine whether Ghost still existed or whether Matthews had been right about her fundamental inadequacy as a soldier. The industrial warehouse provided Claudia with an elevated firing position that overlooked Matthews' entire tactical deployment, but reaching it required crossing 200 meters of open ground while exposed to enemy observation from multiple directions. As she prepared to move, her radio crackled with urgent transmissions from both Somalia and her immediate location that demanded simultaneous attention. Ghost enemy sniper is repositioning, reported Sergeant Park from Mogadishu. He's moving to a new hide site that will give him better angles on our defensive position. Park, what's your visual on the sniper's movement? Claudia asked, while simultaneously observing Matthew's team through her rifle scope. Negative visual contact, but we can track his movement by muzzle flash and impact patterns. He's approximately 800 meters from our position, probably using a building with multiple firing positions. Well, Claudia processed this information while calculating her own tactical movement to the warehouse. The sniper in Somalia was using classic hide site rotation techniques that she had taught extensively during her instructor years. But those same techniques also created predictable patterns that could be exploited by someone who understood the underlying methodology. Park, the sniper, will establish his new position within the next 90 seconds. During his movement, he's vulnerable to observation and counterfire. I need you to position one of your people as a spotter while another prepares to engage. Copy, Ghost. Who takes the shot? Claudia paused her own movement while considering the personnel capabilities of Park's team. SEAL snipers were generally excellent marksmen, but engaging a target at 800 meters while under pressure required exceptional skill and the right equipment. Who's your best precision shooter, and what weapons do you have available? Petty Officer Jackson is our designated marksman equipped with an M110 sniper rifle. He's qualified to 1,200 meters, but he's never engaged a target under these kinds of pressure conditions. Jackson will take the shot. Park, you will provide spotting and wind corrections. But first, I need you to create a diversion that forces the enemy sniper to reveal his position. While providing tactical guidance to the SEAL team, Claudia began her own movement toward the warehouse, using industrial equipment to mask her approach from Matthews's overwatch positions. But as she moved, she became aware that Matthews was monitoring her radio communications and using her divided attention as a tactical advantage. Ghost, Matthews transmitted, I have to admire your ambition. Trying to save American soldiers in two different combat zones simultaneously is exactly the kind of arrogance that got people killed in Syria. Claudia ignored Matthews's psychological warfare attempts while continuing to coordinate both operations. Park, execute your diversion in 30 seconds. Jackson, prepare to engage on my command. Ghost, diversion ready. What's our target? The enemy sniper will expose himself when he reacts to your diversion. Jackson will have approximately 4 seconds to acquire and engage before the target disappears again. Claudia reached the base of the warehouse and began climbing an external staircase that led to the second-floor firing position. But as she climbed, she could hear movement below that indicated Matthews' team was repositioning to counter her tactical advantage. Park execute now. Through her radio, Claudia heard the sounds of the SEAL team's diversion, probably smoke grenades or explosive devices designed to draw the enemy sniper's attention. She counted seconds while climbing the stairs, knowing that Jackson's window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Target exposed, Park reported. Jackson, you have a clear shot. I see him, Jackson responded, 820 meters wide from the east at 12 miles per hour. Claudia reached the warehouse firing position just as Jackson fired. Through her radio, she heard the impact report that confirmed their success. Hit enemy sniper is down. Repeat target eliminated. But Claudia's moment of satisfaction was interrupted by movement in her immediate area. Matthews' team had surrounded the warehouse and was preparing to assault her position from multiple directions simultaneously. Webb, she transmitted, your sniper in Somalia is dead. Your operation there has failed. Call off your people here, and we can discuss terms for resolving this situation. I'm afraid that's not possible, Ghost. You see, the sniper in Somalia was just a test of your abilities under pressure. The real operation is what's happening right there in Switzerland. Claudia felt something cold settle in her stomach as she understood the scope of Webb's planning. The SEAL team in Somalia had not been coincidentally attacked. They had been deliberately targeted as a way to divide her attention during the engagement with Matthews' team. How many of my former students are working for your organization, Webb? Enough to demonstrate that your training methods produce excellent soldiers when they are properly motivated and compensated. Through her rifle scope, Claudia could see Matthews approaching the warehouse with tactical precision that reflected years of special operations experience. He was moving with confidence that suggested he believed the outcome of their engagement was predetermined. Matthews, she transmitted, you're making the same mistake that got soldiers killed in Syria. You're letting personal emotions override tactical judgment. Syria is exactly why I know I'm going to win, Ghost. Because I learned from your mistakes while you've been hiding behind corporate security protocols for 5 years. Claudia established her firing position and began acquiring targets among Matthews' assault team. But as she prepared to engage her, radio crackled with another transmission that changed everything about their tactical situation. Ghost, this is Major Collins, Delta Force Command. We've been monitoring your communications and we need you to abort your current engagement immediately. Claudia paused her target acquisition. Collins, I'm kind of in the middle of something here. Ghost, listen to me carefully. Ryan Matthews is not just seeking personal revenge. He's working with foreign intelligence services to eliminate key personnel in American defense industries. This entire operation is designed to destabilize NATO military contracts in preparation for a larger international incident. Foreign intelligence services. Claudia felt the tactical picture shifting as she understood that Matthews' personal vendetta had been weaponized by hostile governments seeking to damage American military capabilities. Collins, what do you need from me? I need you to capture Matthews alive so we can extract intelligence about the broader operation. Killing him would eliminate our only source of information about foreign involvement in targeting American defense contractors. Claudia studied Matthews' position through her scope, calculating the difficulty of a non-lethal engagement against a target who was actively trying to kill her. Capture operations required exceptional precision and carried significantly higher risk than elimination missions. Collins Matthews has tactical support from multiple operators with military training. A capture operation would expose me to unnecessary risk with minimal probability of success. Ghost, we're not just talking about Matthews. Intelligence indicates that Webb's organization has been contracted to eliminate several other defense industry executives over the next 6 months. Your current client may be the first target in a systematic campaign. Claudia absorbed this information while monitoring Matthews' approach through her scope. If Collins was correct, then Reeves's assassination was part of a larger operation designed to destabilize American military contracting capabilities. Preventing this single attack might save dozens of lives and prevent significant damage to national security. Collins, what support can you provide? Swiss authorities are en route to your location ETA 12 minutes. If you can hold position and keep Matthews alive until they arrive, We can coordinate a joint capture operation. 12 minutes. Claudia calculated her ammunition supply, Matthews's likely assault timeline, and the tactical options available for a defensive engagement. The mathematics were challenging, but not impossible. Copy Collins. I'll attempt capture, but if the tactical situation deteriorates, I'm going to prioritize mission completion over intelligence gathering. Understood, Ghost. Do what you have to do. Claudia returned her attention to Matthew's assault team, which was now positioned to attack the warehouse from 3 different directions. Through her scope, she could see Matthews himself approaching from the main entrance, using tactical movement that demonstrated exceptional training and experience. Matthews, she transmitted, I know about the foreign intelligence involvement. This operation is bigger than personal revenge, and you're being used as a tool by people who don't care about you or your grievances. Ghost Foreign Intelligence Services understand the value of experienced American soldiers better than our own government does. Webb's organization provides opportunities for professionals who want to use their skills without bureaucratic limitations. Matthews, you're talking about treason. Whatever happened in Syria, it's not worth destroying your country or your honor. Honor is exactly what this is about, Ghost. You abandoned your responsibilities when things got difficult, and you convinced people that retreat was equivalent to wisdom. I'm here to prove that real soldiers don't quit when the mission gets hard. Claudia could hear Matthew's team beginning their assault on the warehouse, using coordinated movement and covering fire that reflected professional military training. She had perhaps 2 minutes before they reached her position and forced a close-quarters engagement that would favor their superior numbers. But as she prepared to engage Matthew's assault team, her radio crackled with one final transmission that made her understand the true scope of what they were facing. Ghost, this is Reeves. Chen and I are under attack at the vehicle position. Multiple hostiles, professional tactics. We need immediate support or we're not going to survive the next 5 minutes. Claudia felt her tactical situation collapse into impossible choices. Matthews's assault team was about to overrun her position. Collins needed Matthews captured alive for intelligence purposes, and her clients were under attack with no defensive capabilities. For the second time in 5 years, Claudia Portman faced a tactical situation where there were no good options, only varying degrees of failure and loss. But this time she was not going to retreat from the responsibility of command. This time she was going to prove that Ghost could make impossible decisions and live with the consequences. Collins, she transmitted, I'm about to engage multiple hostiles in order to protect civilian lives. Matthews is going to resist capture, and I'm going to use whatever force is necessary to complete the mission. Ghost, we need him alive. Major, sometimes the mission requires accepting tactical compromises. I'll do my best, but I'm not going to let good people die for the sake of intelligence gathering. Claudia acquired her first target through the rifle scope, one of Matthews's team members approaching the warehouse staircase. Range to target 215 meters. Wind speed negligible due to the industrial buildings providing wind shadow. Temperature 34 degrees Fahrenheit, atmospheric pressure standard for this altitude. She controlled her breathing and found the natural respiratory pause that every precision shooter used. The trigger broke cleanly and her first shot eliminated the immediate threat to her position while alerting Matthews' team that they were facing determined resistance. Contact, Matthews' voice crackled through radio traffic as his assault team responded to effective fire from Claudia's position. Ghost has established overwatch in the warehouse. Adjust approach routes and prepare for extended engagement. Claudia immediately repositioned to a different firing point within the warehouse, using her knowledge of sniper tactics to avoid the kind of predictable patterns that would allow Matthews' team to locate and eliminate her. Through her scope, she could see additional members of the assault team moving to flank her position. But her radio was also carrying desperate transmissions from Reeves and Chen, who were fighting for their lives against professional killers while she was pinned down 200 meters away. Ghost were taking heavy fire, Chen reported, at least 4 hostiles with automatic weapons. Our vehicle armor is failing and we're almost out of ammunition. Claudia made a decision that would have been impossible 5 years earlier. Instead of maintaining her defensive position and trying to capture Matthews alive, she was going to break contact with his assault team and conduct an immediate counterattack against the forces threatening her clients. Collins' mission parameters have changed. I'm breaking contact with Matthews to protect civilian lives. You'll have to find another way to gather intelligence about the foreign involvement. Ghost, if Matthews escapes, we may lose our only opportunity to prevent future attacks. Major, I understand the strategic implications, but I'm not going to let innocent people die while I pursue intelligence objectives. Claudia slung her rifle and began moving toward the warehouse exit using industrial equipment to provide cover as she prepared to abandon her defensive position and assault the forces attacking Reeves and Chen. It was tactically insane, a single operator attempting to defeat multiple enemies in open terrain without support. But it was also exactly the kind of impossible mission that defined the difference between good soldiers and legends. As she reached the warehouse exit, Claudia's radio crackled with Matthew's voice one final time. Ghost, you're making the same mistake you made in Syria. You're abandoning a defensive position to attempt a rescue operation that's going to get everyone killed. Matthews, as she replied, the mistake I made in Syria was letting people convince me that failure was inevitable. This time I'm going to succeed because I finally understand what I'm really fighting for. Claudia Portman burst through the warehouse exit and began the most dangerous 300 meters of her military career, running across open ground toward an enemy force that outnumbered her 4-1. Behind her, Matthews' assault team pursued with professional determination. Ahead, Reeves and Chen were fighting for their lives against killers who had been hired to eliminate them. And somewhere in the Swiss mountains, the legendary Ghost was about to discover whether 5 years of doubt and civilian life had destroyed her ability to achieve the impossible when everything depended on it. The 300-meter sprint across open ground toward the Mercedes took Claudia through a gauntlet of enemy fire that would have been suicide for any soldier with less experience or training. But Ghost had not earned her reputation by accepting conventional tactical limitations. She used every piece of industrial equipment, every concrete barrier, every change in terrain, elevation to mask her approach, while maintaining maximum speed toward her objective. Behind her, she could hear Matthews' assault team pursuing with professional determination, their radio communications indicating frustration with her unexpected tactical decision to abandon a defensive position for an offensive rescue operation. They had expected her to remain in the warehouse where they could eliminate her through coordinated assault, but her movement had disrupted their operational timeline and forced them to adapt to circumstances they had not anticipated. Ghost is moving toward the vehicle position, Matthews transmitted to his team. Intercept and eliminate before she can provide support to the principals. But Claudia's years of special operations experience had taught her that the most dangerous tactical decision was often the most effective one. By choosing to attack rather than defend, she had seized initiative from Matthews' team and forced them to react to her choices instead of executing their planned operation. 50 meters from the Mercedes, she could see the tactical situation clearly through her rifle scope. Chen had positioned the armored vehicle to provide cover while engaging 4 hostiles with his sidearm, but the enemy team was using superior firepower and positioning to systematically destroy the car's ballistic protection. Reeves was crouched behind the engine block, obviously terrified, but following Chen's instructions to remain in cover. The attacking force consisted of professional operators using suppressed automatic weapons and coordinated movement patterns that indicated extensive military training. These were not random contractors or local criminals. They were experienced soldiers working with precision and discipline that matched any elite military unit. Claudia established a firing position behind an abandoned concrete mixer and began engaging the hostiles with methodical precision. Her first shot eliminated the enemy team leader, a man who had been coordinating the assault through hand signals while maintaining cover behind a steel support beam. Her second shot neutralized the automatic weapons operator, who had been providing suppressing fire against Chen's position. "Chen, this is Ghost," she transmitted. "I'm providing overwatch from your 6 o'clock position. When I give the command, move Reeves to the backup vehicle position we discussed." "Ghost, what backup vehicle position? We never discussed. Trust me, Chen, move when I tell you to move." Claudia's third and fourth shots eliminated the remaining immediate threats to the Mercedes, but her radio was crackling with reports that Matthews' assault team was closing on her position rapidly. She had perhaps 30 seconds before she would be caught between the two enemy forces. But those 30 seconds were enough to execute the tactical plan she had been developing since the beginning of this engagement. "Chen, move now. Take Reeves and follow my tracers to the extraction point. Claudia fired illumination rounds toward a small maintenance building that she had identified during her initial reconnaissance of the area. The building provided cover communication capabilities and multiple exit routes that would allow them to evade pursuit until Swiss authorities arrived. Chen moved with professional competence, using the Mercedes as mobile cover while guiding Reeves toward the extraction point. But as they moved, Claudia became aware of additional movement that indicated the tactical situation was more complex than she had initially understood. "Ghost, this is Collins," crackled through her radio. "Satellite imagery shows additional vehicles approaching your location from multiple directions. Matthews's operation is larger than we initially assessed." Additional vehicles. Claudia felt the tactical mathematics shifting as she realized that Webb's organization had committed significantly more resources to this operation than a simple assassination required. Either Reeves was more important than she had understood, or this entire engagement was designed to accomplish objectives beyond eliminating a single defense contractor. "Collins, what kind of additional vehicles?" "Military-style transports, probably carrying additional operators. ETA to your location is approximately 8 minutes. 8 minutes before enemy reinforcements arrived." Swiss authorities were still 4 minutes away. Claudia calculated ammunition supplies, movement options, and the tactical requirements for keeping her clients alive until friendly forces could provide support. The mathematics were not encouraging. "Chen, we need to accelerate our timeline," she transmitted while engaging Matthews's pursuit team through carefully aimed shots that slowed their advance without fully stopping it. "Swiss authorities are en route, but we've got additional hostiles inbound. Ghost, the extraction point is secured. Reeves is safe, and we've established communication with local authorities." Claudia felt a measure of relief, but she understood that her personal tactical situation remained critical. She was isolated in enemy territory with limited ammunition, facing professional operators who knew her capabilities and had planned specifically to counter her techniques. "Matthews," she transmitted, "your backup plan has failed. My clients are safe. Swiss authorities are responding, and your foreign intelligence handlers are about to lose their entire operational investment." "Ghost, the operation isn't about killing Reeves anymore. It's about proving that you can be defeated when you face real opposition instead of hiding behind corporate security protocols." Claudia understood that Matthews's personal obsession had evolved beyond rational tactical objectives. He was no longer focused on completing the assassination. He was focused on vindicating his interpretation of what had happened in Syria 5 years earlier. But personal obsessions created tactical vulnerabilities that could be exploited by someone with superior experience and judgment. "Matthews, you want to settle what happened in Syria? Let's settle it. One-on-one engagement, no backup, winner takes all." "That's exactly what I've been waiting for, Ghost." Claudia began moving toward a position that would allow her to engage Matthews individually while minimizing the involvement of his support team. The industrial complex provided numerous locations where two snipers could face each other at extended range with minimal interference from external factors. But as she moved, her radio crackled with intelligence that changed everything about the engagement. "Ghost, this is Collins. We've identified the Foreign Intelligence Service behind Webb's operation. It's Russian SVR, and they're targeting Meridian Defense as part of a broader campaign to destabilize NATO military procurement." Russian intelligence. Claudia felt the scope of the operation expanding as she understood that Matthew's personal vendetta had been weaponized by hostile foreign powers seeking to damage American military capabilities. "Collins, what's the strategic objective?" "Meridian Defense holds contracts worth over $3 billion for NATO military equipment. Eliminating their executive leadership would delay critical weapons deliveries and create supply chain vulnerabilities that Russian forces could exploit." Claudia realized that preventing Reeves's assassination was not just about corporate security. It was about protecting national security interests that extended far beyond individual lives or business relationships. "Collins, I need you to understand something. Matthews is not just working for Webb's organization. He's been psychologically manipulated by foreign intelligence services that are using his personal grievances to accomplish strategic objectives." "What are you suggesting, Ghost?" "I'm suggesting that Matthews may not fully understand what he's been recruited to do. If I can reach him psychologically, I might be able to turn him instead of eliminating him." Claudia established a firing position that provided clear lines of sight to the area where Matthews was likely to position himself for their individual engagement. But instead of preparing for immediate combat, she decided to attempt something that violated every principle of tactical engagement: psychological intervention during active hostilities. Matthews, I need you to consider something before we begin this engagement. The Syrian operation that you've been obsessing about for 5 years was not a failure of leadership or training. It was a Russian intelligence operation designed to create exactly the kind of psychological trauma that you're experiencing. What are you talking about, Ghost? I'm talking about the fact that the intelligence for our Syrian mission was provided by sources that we later discovered were compromised by Russian SVR. The casualties we sustained were not the result of tactical mistakes. They were the result of deliberately corrupted operational intelligence. Claudia could hear Matthews processing this information through their radio connection. For the first time since this engagement began, he was not immediately responsive with psychological warfare or tactical threats. You're saying that Syria was a setup from the beginning. I'm saying that foreign intelligence services have been manipulating American military operations for years using our own dedication and professionalism against us. They identify soldiers like you who are psychologically vulnerable due to combat trauma, and they provide alternative explanations that redirect your anger toward American targets instead of foreign enemies. Through her rifle scope, Claudia could see Matthews in his firing position approximately 600 meters away. He had excellent cover and concealment and professional equipment, and all the tactical advantages that should have guaranteed his success in a precision shooting engagement. But for the first time since this operation began, he was not actively trying to kill her. Ghost, if what you're saying is true, then I've been working for Russian intelligence for 5 years without realizing it. Matthews, you have been working for Webb's organization, which has been contracted by Russian intelligence to eliminate American defense industry personnel. You're not a traitor. You're a victim of psychological warfare that exploited your legitimate grief about Syria. Claudia heard additional vehicle movement that indicated Matthews' backup team was still approaching, but their radio communications suggested confusion about Matthews' failure to engage her as planned. Webb, she transmitted, your operational timeline is compromised. Swiss authorities are responding. Your primary objective has failed, and your foreign intelligence handlers are about to lose their entire investment in this operation. Ghost, you underestimate our commitment to completing contracted objectives. This operation will continue until all targets are eliminated. Webb's response confirmed that he was not going to accept tactical reality or negotiate a peaceful resolution. But it also revealed that Matthews was beginning to understand the true nature of the organization he had been working for. Matthews, you can hear Webb's communications. He's not concerned about your survival or your grievances about Syria. He's focused on completing a contract with foreign intelligence services that consider American soldiers to be expendable assets. Through her scope, Claudia could see Matthews adjusting his position, but he was not establishing a firing posture. Instead, he appeared to be preparing for movement that would take him out of the engagement area entirely. Ghost, if I've been manipulated for 5 years, how do I know you're not manipulating me right now? Claudia understood Matthews' psychological dilemma. After years of believing that his anger was justified and his actions were righteous, he was confronting the possibility that he had been systematically deceived by people who understood his psychological vulnerabilities. Matthews, you don't have to trust me, but you do have to make a decision about who you want to be. You can continue working for an organization that uses American soldiers as expendable assets for foreign intelligence services, or you can remember the oath you took when you became a ranger. The sound of approaching vehicles was becoming louder, indicating that Webb's reinforcements would arrive within the next few minutes. Claudia calculated her options for evading a superior force while protecting her clients and potentially extracting Matthews as an intelligence asset. But before she could implement her tactical plan, Matthews' voice crackled through her radio with a transmission that changed everything. Ghost, this is Matthews. I'm switching sides. What do you need me to do? For the first time in 5 years, Claudia Portman felt like she had achieved something more important than mission completion or tactical success. She had reached a fellow soldier who had been lost in psychological warfare and brought him back to the principles that define professional military service. Matthews, we need to extract from this area before Webb's reinforcements arrive. Can you provide support for a tactical withdrawal that gets everyone out alive? Copy Ghost. I know Webb's operational procedures. I can guide us to an extraction point that his people won't anticipate. As Swiss police sirens wailed in the distance and Webb's vehicles closed on their position, Claudia and Matthews began working together to accomplish what neither could have achieved individually, the successful completion of a mission that protected American lives while gathering intelligence about foreign operations against NATO military capabilities. But most importantly, they had proven that even the deepest psychological wounds could be healed when soldiers remembered their fundamental commitment to protecting each other and serving something larger than personal grievances. An hour later, as Swiss authorities secured the industrial complex and placed Webb's operators under arrest, Claudia found herself sitting in a police station completing after-action reports, while Matthews provided detailed intelligence about Russian SVR operations targeting American defense contractors. Ghost File, Matthews said during a break in his debriefing, I need you to know that Syria was not your fault. I spent 5 years convincing myself that someone had to be responsible for what happened, and I chose you because it was easier than accepting that sometimes good people die despite everyone's best efforts. Claudia looked at the young soldier she had nearly killed an hour earlier, recognizing in his face the same guilt and confusion she had carried for 5 years after leaving military service. Matthew's Syria taught me something important about leadership and responsibility. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is accept that failure is part of success and that learning from mistakes is more important than avoiding them entirely. Her phone buzzed with a message from Major Collins. Ghost, the intelligence Matthews is providing has already prevented 3 additional assassination attempts against NATO defense contractors. Your decision to turn him instead of eliminating him may have saved dozens of lives. Delta Force would like to discuss opportunities for you to return to active instruction duties. Your country needs soldiers who understand that the most important victories are the ones that bring people home instead of simply defeating enemies. Claudia showed the message to Matthews, who managed a weak smile despite his obvious exhaustion. Looks like we both get a second chance to serve our country properly, this time, he said. Claudia nodded, feeling for the first time in 5 years that she was exactly where she belonged. Not hiding behind corporate security protocols or administrative responsibilities, but using her experience and judgment to protect American soldiers and advance national security interests. Matthews, when this debriefing is finished, how would you feel about helping me train the next generation of snipers? I think there are some lessons about psychological warfare and foreign intelligence manipulation that need to be added to the curriculum. Ghost, I'd be honored to work with you again. This time, let's make sure we're fighting for the right people. 3 months later, Major Claudia Portman stood in front of a classroom at Fort Bragg, wearing the uniform of a Delta Force instructor and addressing a group of advanced sniper students that included both American soldiers and NATO allies. Long-range precision shooting is not just about ballistics and environmental calculations. She began looking at each student individually. It's about understanding that every shot you take represents a choice about who you serve and what principles you defend. In the back of the classroom, Chief Warrant Officer Ryan Matthews nodded approvingly as she continued her instruction. 5 years ago, I thought that making mistakes disqualified me from teaching others. I thought that failure meant I was inadequate as a soldier and as a leader. I was wrong about that, just like I was wrong about a lot of things. One of the students raised her hand. Ma'am, is it true that foreign intelligence services try to recruit American snipers? Claudia exchanged glances with Matthews before answering. Soldier foreign intelligence services try to recruit anyone with specialized skills and access to classified information. Your job is to remember your oath, trust your training, and never let personal grievances override your professional judgment. She picked up a precision rifle from the demonstration table, the same type of weapon that Matthews had used against her, before understanding the true nature of his employment. The most important shot you'll ever take is not the one that eliminates an enemy at extreme range. The most important shot is the one you choose not to take when someone is trying to manipulate you into targeting the wrong people. After class, Claudia walked across Fort Bragg to the memorial wall where the names of fallen soldiers were engraved in black granite. She found the section that honored Delta Force operators killed in classified operations, running her fingers across names that included soldiers she had trained and men who had died during the Syrian mission that had haunted her for 5 years. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jonathan Reeves, who had returned safely to his family and resumed his duties as CEO of Meridian Defense Corporation. Claudia, the contracts that Webb's people were trying to disrupt have been successfully completed. NATO forces are receiving critical equipment that will save American lives in future operations. Thank you for protecting not just my life, but the national security interests that depend on those contracts. Your service makes a difference in ways you may never fully understand. Claudia smiled as she read the message, understanding that her decision to return to military service had been the right choice for reasons that extended far beyond personal fulfillment. But the message that meant the most came from Sergeant Lisa Park, the Navy SEAL she had guided through the counter-sniper operation in Somalia. Ghost, the techniques you taught us saved 6 American lives that day. My team is home safe because you were willing to provide tactical guidance under impossible circumstances. Thank you for proving that legends are real when soldiers need them most. Standing in front of the memorial wall, Claudia finally understood what Colonel Harrison had tried to tell her years earlier. Sometimes the greatest failures become the foundation for the most important successes. Sometimes the mistakes that break you down and are exactly what you need to build something better. Claudia Portman was Ghost again, the Delta Force instructor who taught soldiers to make impossible shots while serving principles larger than personal ambition or individual recognition. She had found her way back to the person she had always been meant to be, and she was ready to train the next generation of warriors who would defend freedom against enemies, both foreign and domestic. The mission continued. The legacy endured, and Ghost was exactly where she belonged, training American soldiers to be ready for whatever impossible challenges they would face in an increasingly dangerous world. Because sometimes the most important victory is not defeating your enemies, but saving your friends.